Greetings, brothers and sisters and people of goodwill. I stumbled across a graphic on social media. I've seen it on Facebook in particular that kind of struck my fancy. Not initially, but then I started to take a closer look at it. It's a poster that this one gentleman put together of historical notables. And when I zeroed in on that poster, the thought occurred to me that that poster alone, the one you see right behind my shoulder here, is the key to pointing our people in the right direction if they are interested in learning about the long and storied history of African people. All they would have to do if they didn't know where to start is to look at this poster. And if you're a parent or a grandparent, a great grandparent, a relative of someone, particularly young people who are in search of who they are, who want to know what their history is, and a history that goes back to the very annals of time, back to the very beginning of mankind, before the slave emancipation era, then they could just go to that poster and take note of the scholars that are pictured on this poster and then delve into what books these various scholars wrote. If they do that, they will be the equal to anyone who would even attempt to try to detract from the glorious history of African people. And so let's just kind of take a look at a couple of the notables on here. Of course, you can start with the dean of African American historians, the much beloved Dr. John HENRIK CLARKE, the master teacher, a mentor to Malcolm X, an authority on Marcus Garvey, a learned scholar who was self-taught. As a matter of fact, he even taught Malcolm X. He's the one that gave Malcolm his historical context that Malcolm had. So you can begin with Dr. Clark. And generally, when you think of Dr. John Henry Clark, you think of one of his contemporaries, Dr. Yosef Ben-Yekinen, affectionately known as Dr. Ben. Born an Ethiopian Jew, he became an Egyptologist and a fierce proponent of African and African-American history, and took on European knowledge construction that begins with Greece and Rome, as though the world began with Greece and Rome. How about Ivan van Sertima, Dr. Ivan van Sertima, who wrote the book, They Came Before Columbus? Chancellor Williams wrote the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. He went back and he chronicled from the most ancient of days, African civilizations and how they came in contact with invaders from Asia and other areas, and how they fought off these invaders, and how these invaders incorporated, came into their societies, married into their families, lightened up their population, and eventually ascended to the throne of Egypt itself. Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilization. And what about Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop? I don't know how many degrees that Dr. Diop had. 7 degrees, an anthropologist, an ethnologist, a physicist. He went back and he did melanin testing on Egyptian mummies, melanin, which is what gives us our skin color. And he did blood testing to prove before some of the world's most renowned Egyptologists and archaeologists that the ancient Egyptians were black from the very beginning, without a shadow of a doubt. How about Frances Cress Welsing, who was a brilliant psychiatrist? She used to woo Phil Donahue on the Phil Donahue Show. It was a talk show, and she used to go on and simply mesmerize Donahue in the audience by looking into the deep recesses of the human mind to decode and break down white supremacy on the most elemental level. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, the gentleman who wrote the Miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson, is another one. George G.M. James, he wrote the book Stolen Legacy, which chronicled how the ancient Greeks, who are credited with so much in the areas of philosophy and mathematics and what have you, but these very Greeks sat at the feet of the ancient Africans. And so what is called Greek philosophy is really co-opted and stolen African philosophy. How about one of my favorites, Dr. MOLEFI, KETE, ASANTE, a temple scholar. And he made that phrase exactly what it is today for those folks who recognize temple scholars, having started the first doctoral program of African American studies anywhere in the world. And this brother has written 100 books, 100 books. And we lost this brother over the pandemic, Dr. Runoko Rashidi, historian. He was mentored by Dr. John HENRIK CLARKE. He traveled extensively around the world, gathering a treasure trove of historical artifacts and cultural treasures. And if you're a school administrator on the school board or just a concerned parent and you're looking for books that are wholesome, that are meaningful, that edify your students, African American students, look no further than Dr. Joanza Kunjufu. There are many more folks on this poster, and some of them are contemporaries that are still alive, that your kids, and in fact, you can benefit from. But let's face it, we can't teach our children and our grandchildren about our history if we don't know that history ourselves. And so I want to highly recommend that you purchase this poster. And I'm going to put the URL up so you can see where you can get it. I don't have anything in any hidden agenda. I don't earn not a dime from this, nor am I looking to earn a dime from it. It just hit me like a brick that this poster, in the age where you've got the governor of Florida, for example, gallivanting around the country, extolling the virtues of book bannings, banning books that our kids, African heritage kids, can learn and be edified from. And so we need to fight and take on people like that. But at the same time, we have to recognize our responsibility is to teach our children ourselves. And again, this poster is a ticket to that. So I highly recommend that you pick up this poster and give it as a gift or put it up in your kid's room so they can see some of the icons and learn from what these icons spent their lives delving into in terms of their disciplines. You know, it's been cynically claimed that if you want to hide something from Black folk, just put it in a book. Well, I don't subscribe to that. I never believed that. And I think that what we need to do as parents and grandparents and people who love our children and our young people is to encourage them to step away from the television set and step away from some of the nonsense that's being fed into their minds. Get them into a library and get them some books and some quiet time so they can learn who they are. So please take a look at this and let's reclaim what is rightfully ours. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.